So it is submission versus people pleasing. Uh, we'll catch up with you on that, Paul, to make sure that we're squared away. So apologies, it's been a little backwards back here. So thank you for tuning in. Cat's downstairs hosting the intensive. One of us had to run up and continue our journey down the 30 days on social media stream. So here we are. All right. Submission versus people pleasing. I have some sources here that I would love to touch on so we can distinguish the two, because oftentimes in service, in submission, it can look like people pleasing. In the grand scheme of things, those are two very different experiences, intentions, what a person's going through, their relationship with power exchange, their relationship with self-value and self-awareness. So I'm going to run into a few of these things, and I would like to hear your thoughts. Chant, you were on it. You were correct. So no, not causing an issue at all. I just wanted to make sure we weren't speaking the same stuff twice. All right, so submission. The act of allowing someone or something to have power over you. Also, the act of accepting the power or authority of someone else. The act of offering something for a decision to be made by others, or the thing that is offered. In DS, my dyslexia is kicking. In DS, both parties take pleasure or erotic enjoyment from either dominating or being dominated. Those who take the subordinate position are called submissive or subs. That's sourced by Wikipedia. Types of submission: sexual, service, slaves, brats, masochists, littles, pets. Can you guys throw in another few examples of types of submission? I will keep an ongoing list of different types of submission. Instagram and TikTok, please feel free to share. Middles, yep. Awesome. Middles is another one that goes in there. That's great. So we're going to break down the difference between to serve, to submit, and to follow. And then Emo says they're a service brat. When you need to be kept on your toes. All right. So, to serve. For some, submission is about taking care of another, serving, doing as they are told. They want to be of use in some way that benefits their dominant partner. This can be sexual, physical, emotional, mental, you name it. This desire manifests in many ways, and it can take many forms. Some submissives find that they fall into this naturally. Serving can be very obvious. Cleaning, taking care of appointments, literally serving a meal. It can also be more subtle, like taking care of small things to make a person's life easier. I'm going to make a note of that for me to come back to. While being of service can be an inherent part of your nature, it still must be discussed and consented to between parties. Why? Because sometimes what we call service, our partner might call major annoyance. It's not serving if they don't want what we're offering. And that's a big deal. It's like, I've had the experience where people come and they say they want to be of service, but they can only be of service in one particular way or two ways. More often than not, when people approach me, in this case, when men approach me for being of service, what they're really doing in a lot of these cases is they just want me to use their body as service for me, like they're doing me the favor. In turn, what it's asking me to do is have to be present and mindful of what their needs are when I didn't ask for it, right? So when it comes to being of service, it's like, ask what's needed and work within the realm of what's being asked versus how you want to be of service. Because if you look at the wheel of consent, and I don't have all the language around that, but there's a difference between me coming to you and saying, I want to help you, only helping in the ways that I want to help versus in the ways you need the help. So be mindful of that if you're looking for service or you're a service-oriented type of person. Who is this service for and why? It's not service unless it's asked for. That's plain, and that's like Persephone just laid it right down. It's not service unless it's asked for. Kushla pointed out, having supper ready and lounging clothes ready. Yes, oh, perfect. Asking for the exertion of energy without understanding the value of service you're offering. Wow, Mary, yes. Would you like to jump on with me, Mary? I know your video doesn't come on, but I would love to hear your perspective on that so you could share. I'm going to do this, and if you're able to join, I would love for you to join. If I can find you. There we go. Boop. Awesome. And anyone else that would like to share, please do. I was in service by... Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's... You know how these intensive weekends are.
I'm sorry, boo.
It's quite incredible. And a lot of these conversations that we're having here are coming up in the intensive. This one has been one of them that we've been talking about for the last couple of days. So what's your take on serving and this type of submission?
Oh, there's like a list. But I think that the chat has covered it really well. And it's serving when you know that there's a value behind what you're offering. I don't think that you should genuinely offer something unless there's a reason behind the why, right? Like, I'm offering this to you because I'm devoted to you, or I know this is going to value you in the future, or it's like taking that mindful piece back on the submissive end to say, why am I doing this? And like, is now the right time to do it, right? Because as a submissive person, whether you're in a dynamic or not, you're able to read the room more appropriately, and you can know when to exchange that piece of value, because knowing your person as well when you're in the dynamic, knowing when to pull the trigger of, okay, now's when I do it.
Yeah, that's a big deal. There was a line in here that said making it easier for the person. Oftentimes I find service difficult. I'm much more likely to get up and do it myself versus asking someone to do it. But the ability to allow someone to serve is the point, right? Is to allow the person to experience that, the purpose, the experience, the presence of service.
Well, I think it's funny that you say that, because I would say you don't ask of your slaves or submissives things that you can do. The things that make your life easier are the things that challenge you, of like things you don't know yet, or, oh, this is too technical, like you just do it. Like, I think that you do value your submissives end on the things that will make your life easier, of like, I don't want to learn this tool right now. You learn it and come tell me all about it. I think that that's a value of that too, though.
Oh, big time. It's because, as you know, it's different. And I can't wait for Beyond the Collar, man. Because we're going to dive into this stuff in these conversations from both sides of the slash. And reading the room, for example, I was as a dominant and as a person who's dominant over others and who's a master over others, I serve too. I serve at the events that I host. I serve at events that I visit. For example, I was at Spittin's party one time, and as an event host and as a caretaker, when I see empty cups around, I pick them up. When I see plates that have to be thrown away, I throw them away. I change the garbage bags out, all in the purpose of making things easier for the entire space, for the event host, for the event. And I spent the whole evening doing that. And I was having a conversation with some folks that were visiting from out of town. And at the end of the night, they go, what's your FetLife name? And I go, Master Joshua, NYC. And he looked at me, he goes, come again? I go, Master Joshua, NYC. And he goes, but you've been picking up trash all night. I go, yeah, because that's my service to the community. It's like, it doesn't stop because I'm a D type and I have S types here where there are S types present. It's like, my dominance doesn't negate my need for service as well, to be of service.
Right. Right. I remember that day. And I think it's interesting too, because as you were talking, the chat was saying as well, it's like taking it into the vanilla side of life. It's that same value, right? Like you were saying you were cleaning up after everyone, and it's like hosting a party. It can happen in like you offering to do taxes, I saw, or if you're a really good leader of trying to help guide, like that's the submission is there of saying, I want to follow this person because of their technical components or of their career journeys too. And it's that same thing like you were saying. It's like that everyday thing that we perform, it can be viewed as service, no matter how you look at it, right? So.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
For anyone joining, this is my slave Mary. She's joining us from the great Long Island. All right, so that was to serve. What about to submit? I'll read it and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Oh, right. Let's see. Make sure it is two sides. Cool. To submit. In my opinion, of the writer, submitting is different from serving, although not everyone will see it this way, and the differences can be subtle. To submit is to allow someone else's will, desires, wants, control, words to supersede your own. We all submit in the vanilla world. Doing what a boss or teacher tells you to do is a form of submission. Don't orgasm until I give you permission is a form of submission. You give up control over your choice to when to orgasm. You might really, really want that orgasm, but when you submit, you choose to wait until you have permission. Go to bed at this time, do these chores, complete this activity. You might have done these things willingly without being told. But when you take direction from a partner, this is a form of submission. They want you to do something at a certain time in a certain way. Instead of deciding for yourself how and when to do these things, you take direction from another person. It's not that you don't have a mind or will of your own. Instead, it's that you allow someone else's mind and will to take the lead. Sometimes submission is very easy. It's what you wanted to do anyway. At other times, it's much more challenging because you may have to choose between what you want and what your dominant wants. Clearly, Mary doesn't know about this.
No, not even a little bit. I think that's the difference between slave and submissive. And if you guys, shameless plug, if you guys join Beyond the Collar, we're going to be talking about that in the month of September, is these different definitions as well. But when I think about submit, that's the choice. Like you're removing the choice. It's saying, whatever you say, I'm going to do, because I have the safety and trust in you to not push back my boundaries or things that like we've negotiated. And that like, if you tell me now's the good time to go to bed, time's to go to bed. Like there's no second thought. And I think with submission, while it can have that same label, like I don't want to take away from people that believe that in their submissive space, I think submissives, you still have that freedom to say like, well, I see that you want me to go to bed right now, but like if I go to bed in like 25 minutes, like I'm doing my schedule, or I can get something else done in the meantime. Like you have more room to like negotiate there.
Awesome. I'm actually thinking about how, because slave versus submissive, when it comes to submitting, some of what you had shared, some people would or possibly could interpret that as bratting, right? Resisting against. And what I would like to do is find more concrete ways or a simpler way between differentiating between submissive and slave. For anyone who's hearing it, they can hear this one or two sentences and be like, I got it. Do you have something like that for Mary?
Huh. I was like, knew you were gonna
refill my cup. I'm gonna refill my cup. I'm listening.
yeah, I knew you were gonna do that and then like run away. That was pretty cool. Do I have I could probably equate it to like an example.
Okay.
While watching people play, right? Let's say that. If I was submissive, I would wait to be like asked to get water and other things to help the scene, right? Like I'm kind of waiting to be tasked to do something versus like full commitment is I know that at this time, right, like I'm gonna watch for this move and then I know that that's when that's my cue to come and like do that. Like it's more of I don't have to wait to be tasked type of thing. Like I know the things that may come, and then if I'm asked, it's like to shift gears almost. But it's space bound, right? Like where are we sharing this time and this energy? And then like how am I to respond with the resources that I have, right? Like if it's in our space in our home, that's different than like if we're out at a play space. I don't know if that helps.
Would anyone else like to drop in? No, it absolutely it gives perspective. What I wrote down was guidance versus obedience or direction.
Yeah, because I don't know anything about bratting, so.
But it also, the other thing, and I find this unique to myself. I have a lot of people who submit to me. I have a lot of people who serve me, but I'm not their dominance, right? I'm not their master. I'm not their dom, but within the safety that is created for them, they choose to submit and to be of service in some degree. In that, with the directions that I give, a lot of it is about moving the ball forward versus serving me. Like, rub my feet, get my shoes, make dinner, do this, do that, versus the dishes need to be cleaned, right? Let's pack this stuff up so we can take it downstairs. It's more like goal-oriented than it is serving me. And I think it's because I have a harder time with that. But and in the same breath, I have no issues providing that for someone else, as long as it's as long as I'm getting acknowledged and a thank you. Right? Because as a master, as a dom, I still, like I just said, I still provide service and give in certain ways. But if there's no gratitude for it, then I don't want to be there. And then that's where resentment can come in.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Because I got into a car one time and we were helping someone host an event, and there wasn't any gratitude throughout the whole process. It was like, you're all expected to be here and provide this because it's going to make my work easier. But there was no thank you at the end of it, or any point in that. And it was very disheartening. And it makes me not want to serve again. And I didn't. I stopped because of the absence of gratitude.
So it sounds like that's two pieces, right? Like the absence of gratitude, but the expectation that I should be gratuitous as well. Like if allow that person to drive those things, right? Like I think that that's how you can tell really seasoned members of the lifestyle, right? Of people that are almost built in with that natural, gratuitous energy of like pride to be around certain people, pride to be in certain spaces, like, and you can tell. Versus the individuals that are newer, and it's not that I think that they intend to be disrespectful to the space, but they don't know any better to do something different. And then once you do, then that's where my expectation comes, is that I'm going to expect you to perform in the way that I've met you and I've guided you. And then if you're not there, then I mean, that's on you. Like, that's your choice, but you can't be affiliated, or you can't do those things. And I think that that's the biggest driver.
It's funny because I'm gonna read the to follow. Let me. Damn it! I don't want to. Hold on. I gotta take a note.
Okay.
So as a leader, right, and as someone who's followed, as someone who's served, and as someone who's submitted to, my role in it is to water the plants, right, to feed them. And what happened was there was someone who was doing impact, and I was watching them. No, not impact, rope. I was watching them, and I know they can do better. Now, there's a few different ways to approach that. You can do soft and cuddly, all the way to the opposite end of the extreme. And I took a risk. I took a shot at this because I felt that this person could hear it this way and embrace it. And I walked over to them and I says, hey, it's a very technical harness, single column you did. Very technical, nicely done. There's no connection. And I know you can do better than that. And they looked at me, and at first it was like it was a swift kick in the stomach, because it was like a shock. Like, oh shit, I underperformed. And then they bottomed, and then they topped again. But the top, when they came back around to topping, they did exactly what I was talking about, in the sense of you could do better. And they owned that shit. And it was like the ability to take someone who trusts, who leads, who follows, who serves, or who submits, and telling them, you're bigger than that. I know you can do it. Was one, it was very scary because I wanted to make sure I didn't break the person in that. But it was also a way for me to, in the way I was seeing it, was a sense of service. Except it was like what I would call, in a form, tough love. But my intention was to empower the person through this motivation, through this awareness and observation, and it worked, and it worked well, because by the end of it, they were like, rope went from a tool to an extension of me. And it was like incredible. Like, it was really powerful when you're serving, when you're submitting, when you're following someone, and when they're supporting someone. That shit can look a million different ways. And it's like understanding the chemistry between the person supporting and the person leading. It matters. It really matters. So there's a couple of comments in here. I felt wounded in my service side if it's not occasionally acknowledged that I'm performing well. Yes, Persephone, yes. A well-placed good boy will always make me melt and get the dom even more served. Yeah, thank you. As I believe the other side would feel if appreciation is not acknowledged to them. Yeah, 100%. So let me read to follow. I could have called this being taken care of or being led by another person. To follow someone's lead may look exactly like submitting to or serving your partner. But I want to make a distinction here between the three. They want you to do something, tell you to do it, and you let their desires sometimes override your own. Although hopefully one of your desires is to do what your dominant wants you to do. If not, it's time for a conversation. To follow means they are someone you allowed to lead, to make decisions and or take care of you. It can absolutely have elements of submission and service, but not always. I think both of owner-slave dynamics and caregiver-little dynamics, as well as 24/7 power exchange relationships, regardless of dynamics, when I think of leading and following. In these situations, the dominant partner leads in a very consistent way. For us, John Brownstone isn't just the daddy dom, he's also the decider. I may serve, I may submit, or I may simply follow his lead without consciously thinking of service or submission. Very often I do some level of all three. But ultimate responsibility in our dynamic sits with him. For the record, I'm still an autonomous human being, and I have a responsibility to my own well-being. But as long as he willingly accepts and I willingly agree to give him this responsibility, he can have it and I will follow his lead. You, as a submissive, may find yourself doing things or wanting to do things you didn't realize tapped into your submission. It's important to discuss them with your partner as they occur and make sure you're both on the same page going forward. It's too easy to overstep as a submissive. I do it all the time because I like to be helpful. It's also very easy to create expectations in your own mind as to how your dominant partner should react to what you do for them. But if you don't talk about what you're doing and they don't consent to what you want to do, it's unfair to set an expectation about how they should react. Take, for example, a novice submissive without a good definition of themselves. They don't know what they're looking for or how to find it because they can't tell you who they are and what meaning submission has to them. We all need to take time to really figure out who we are in this life. And what's cool about this part, what's cool about this part is having the discussions of how you want to be of service and how they want you to be of service so that energy isn't getting wasted either in an area that isn't necessary, isn't desired. But the ability to have an ongoing dialogue around what submission means to us, what dominance means to us, and how do we co-create in these power exchanges or experiences or dynamics. What are your thoughts on that, Mary?
I would say that when you were reading To Follow, I was reminded of like the mentor-student type of dynamic of here's all my skill sets, here's all the toys and all the things you can pick from. Just in order for me to show you all of them, you have to dedicate the time back to you. And that the driver in all of this is not the dominant, but it's you as the person, right? Because if you did everything for someone, what is the value that you're bringing back to yourself? Like that's something I've always believed in. I don't think that you follow someone because you want to be just like them. I think you desire things that are in them and that you can bring that value back to yourself. And the dedication that you give through your dynamics and things like that is to say, I'm going to be the best version of me because of all the things I've learned from you and all the things I want to learn for myself. And I think that when what you were reading too, it said to like discuss, hey, here's what my life plans are, so that the dominant is more, or whoever the top is in that sense, is understanding of like, hey, here's where you want your life to go. Now here are all the tasks that will help you get to where you want to go, whether that looks like it or not. But I think it always just comes back to follow. Like if you're hesitant in following, that's something preventative in yourself, right? Like being following and led astray, right? Or being following and left like at a certain point. But what brings you back to you in the same breath?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the difference between submission and people pleasing. I have to go back and change that little namey thing up. However, let's jump into people pleasing, because what I've noticed throughout my time hosting events, speaking with people with submissive tendencies, and I want to use that language, I want to be very particular in how we're using the word I'm submissive or I'm dominant or I'm a dominant or I'm a submissive. What I like to present to people is when you walk into a room, are you submissive to everyone in the room, or are you submissive to a person in the room? Are you submissive to the space? Are you providing your time, energy, and focus to an intention? Ultimately meaning, unless you have a discussion with someone and you have agreed to the parameters, submission isn't something to throw on someone's lap, right? It's something that should be consented to. And it goes the same for a dominant. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves is a guy, and it's generally a guy, a male who walks in the door, and because they're dominant in their roles in relationships, they exude their energy onto everybody else like they're everyone else's dominant, talking to folks in spaces like they're their submissives. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. And the same goes for submission. Walking up to people with your collar and saying, please, how can I? It's like, no, dude, meet me as a person and let us establish our connection from there to determine if I even want service, submission, or following, or if you want to lead, if you want to take the other role of that. Consent is very important here. It's very important because the responsibilities that are put onto others in which this power exchange is affected. All right, people pleaser. A people pleaser personality means a person feels a strong urge to please others, even at their own expense. And that's the key. They may feel that their wants and needs do not matter or alter their personality around others. People pleaser is not a medical diagnosis or personality trait that psychologists measure. Instead, it's an informal label people use to describe a variety of behaviors, such as agreeing to errands a person does not have time for. This is different from traits such as kindness, generosity, or altruism. While people can make a balanced and intentional choice to do favors for others, an individual with people-pleasing tendencies will find it hard to say no. They may agree to things they do not want or not able to do. Altruism, or the desire to help others, is another common trait in humans. Sometimes this might involve an element of self-sacrifice, such as giving money, time, or energy to a cause. What distinguishes these behaviors from people-pleasing is that the latter is difficult to stop. A person with a strong urge to please may feel they need to be whatever others want them to be. They may cover up how they really feel or agree to too many favors. A person may feel temporarily good after they please someone, but this feeling does not last. They may need to continue doing things for others to feel useful or loved. Ultimately, this harms them, as they have fewer resources to take care of themselves. That's why codependency is considered a form of addiction. You may have a friend who pushes aside his needs to accommodate the needs of everyone else. The people pleaser needs to please others for reasons that may include fear of rejection, insecurities, the need to be well liked. If they stop pleasing others, they think everyone will abandon them. They'll be uncared for and unloved. Or they may fear failure. If they stop pleasing others, they'll disappoint them, which they think will lead to punishment or negative consequences. The tendency to please is related to dependent personality disorder. While the people pleaser may not need others to do things for them, they do have a need for others regardless. The pleasing personality is also related to the masochistic personality type, which also corresponds with dependent personality. Fawning is sometimes referred to as people pleasing. When someone is fawning, they may appear overly cooperative or helpful, sometimes to their own detriment. They might minimize or fully deny their own needs, struggle to say no even to unreasonable requests, or agree with things with those around them, even if it does not reflect their real feelings or values. Most people engage in people-pleasing behavior from time to time. For example, if your boss makes a request that you don't want to do, you might say that you're happy to help, especially if that request is part of your job responsibilities. However, people who fawn may be unable to stop the people-pleasing behavior at other times and may neglect their own needs in extreme and unhealthy ways. Additionally, while you might comply with your employer because you prefer to keep your job, a person who is fawning may experience significant fear or anxiety about what would happen if they do not keep those around them happy. I agree on a few levels that I'm a people pleaser. And sometimes my being caught up on this phrase is people as a large group or as a group of people, as opposed to a person pleaser, right? Where I would say yes to an individual because I want to please them versus walking into a room and saying yes to everybody, right? So it's not like it has to be all of that. It could just be one part of that. What are your thoughts, Mary?
Uh, I hate this topic.
You
The
feel
reason
called out too?
yeah. So I talked about this in therapy because I had this breakdown. I want to say it was probably like May or June that I said, I don't want to feel like I have to be somebody in order to feel loved or to feel appreciated or any of those things. And then as you were reading it prior to getting to the abandonment part, that's been a big driver for me is that we often, until I learned the true value of submission, I used to say I was submissive to everybody, right? And I was confusing that for people pleasing versus true submission of this is my choice versus this is what I feel I have to do, in comparison of the two. When I think though of people pleasing, in therapy I had this I don't know if it's a saying, but it's what came out. And I said, I don't want to be the doormat when I've put all the shoes of the people and like I lick them, I clean them, I make sure they're the best of the kind. And then I said to myself, who asked me to put the shoes on their feet? Like, who asked me to let them walk on me? Like, instead, I want to be the door, like allowing somebody to like come into my space versus being something to be walked on in order to come into my space. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it did in relation to all my trauma. But I think that that's what it comes down to is that often when people are people pleasing, they feel they have to. And then when someone leaves, they're like, but I did all of this for you. Like they're shocked. But the driver being you're doing all the things without being asked to do them. And I think that that's the biggest thing that's often missed is that no one asked you to do all the things that you've done. So you can't be mad when it's all over, should it ever come to that point. Right?
Fuck, I was good. There was something I wanted to add to that. But I was listening. I was like, I got an idea. I said, wait, put it aside, but I didn't write it. And then I'm going to get it. Fuck, it was very, and it'll come back. People pleasing. And I know it had to do, if I remember, I'll come back to it. I wanted to jump in on some of these comments too, because the comments are fantastic.
Yep.
I felt wounded in my service side if it's not occasionally acknowledged that I'm performing well. Wait, I jumped too far back. People pleasing stems from trauma responses. Deciphering what the benefit, the deeper purpose of your service is. Or providing non-requested services and being upset that you weren't praised for it. That Persephone said, yeah, wow, okay. That was a few comments back. But that's along the same lines, yeah? Mary?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that comment was along the same lines of what you just shared.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see. People pleasing stems from trauma responses. People pleasing is in a way more serving yourself, not others. Oh, here it comes. And this comment is along the lines of that. It's like also people pleasing is to stay safe so you aren't rejected, right? It's a way to, yes, okay, cool. Please feel free to ask. Let's see. Submitting to my husband has helped me train out of that behavior. Yeah, and I think submission is a great way to move beyond people pleasing when you find your self-value and the value you provide in your service. You'll realize who doesn't deserve your energy and that you are better without dishing it out for free or out of fear. This was along the lines, yes, Hurricane, Master Hurricane, that's exactly what it was. I was like, I get it now. That when you find your value in your service, in your time, your body, and your resources, will you find the voice and make it easier to turn away from more forms of people pleasing. And I think, like this writing said, there are ways I think everyone people pleases somebody at some point in their life. That's really cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. All right. So that's what I had on here. When was the last time you became aware of, let me see, how can I phrase this question? Because now that you're here with me, Mary, now we're gonna toss this ball back and forth. Or you can ask me a question and we'll go from there.
Can't get out of it that easy. That's not how this works.
I people please on an individual level, right? That's where I'm susceptible to people pleasing, and I've done it in the past. I've done it, and I do it. I still do it. Of course, I still do it. In doing things that I don't want to do, but I feel if I didn't do them, it would disappoint the other person.
That's intense. The absence of saying no, right? And no being an okay thing that shouldn't be paired with disappointment. I think disappointment is just natural and like, oh, I wanted you to be there, but I think that comes down to like, what did I expect, right? Like, what is the expectation of our relationship, and then what happens? Like, where did the disappointment come in? Because then it feels like it's an area that you didn't negotiate, or an area that you didn't say, this is what's important to me, right? In that same breath too.
Mistress Rhiannon, I have to make a note to get the source. I made a mess on Kat's desk looking for the stuff today, and I shuffled a few things around, but I'm going to make sure that we get the source, and it'll be mentioned tomorrow on the live too. So let me get source of writing. Also, here's some trivia stuff. Master Joshua makes airplane sounds or helicopter sounds when moving pieces of furniture or anything around for that matter. I almost did that with this just now, but I was like, oh no, I'm on live, I can't do that. And then I laughed.
He also does that when he's feeding you as well.
Yeah, I do. But yeah, that's realizing that and having to be able to find my words constantly. And it's not like everything bogs me down in life and I'm indecisive or unable to speak up for myself. But there are times where I'm a human being and my words get trapped. And still learning to speak up for myself in areas is something I'm still learning.
Sure. Do you think that the exploration of your submission that you've been doing, what it feels like as of late, will will help guide you a bit more to be able to like decipher what those words are?
Say that one more time.
I said, do you think that the submission work that you've been doing, right after being a master for so long, master driven, right? You've always had this submission, but I feel like as you focus on it, will that help you? Do you feel that'll help you guide your words or help you find what those words are?
What is helping me find my words is the processing, is these types of calls. These last fucking 3 weeks on TikTok has been mind blowing, and it's the processing that helps me find my words. The types of bottoming I've done in the last 2 or 3 weeks also has helped me find the importance of and better language and better understanding. But it's also helped me, most importantly, it's helped me find the language so that I can have, so I don't doubt it when I say it. All right, because I was going to say, so I had the courage to say it, but that's not it. It's when I say it, no, courage is a part of it because of the rejection. But if I have better language that feels right, it makes that whole part easier. So sitting here and processing and going through the experiences of bottoming and in all of this, submitting to my beliefs, because I guess that's where it boils down to is if this is what I believe in, submit to my belief, right? Stop resisting, give into it, and behave that way. And it's very multi-layered and very, very multi-layered, because it affects me on so many different levels. And it's never just one key that has to turn. It's like there's a lot of pieces that have to align in order for it to make sense to me and for me to find the language and then how I'm gonna talk about it.
Sure, but even in what you reflected, it's like it sounds like from all these conversations. So shout out to you, chat, for being a part of the conversations. But it sounds like you have all the key. You're finding the keys of like, oh, okay, like this just needs to go here, and I know it's not as easy as like we say it on the Beyond the Colors, like the light switch, like, oh, that's what it was, and now like life's great, and now I can say whatever I want. So that's really cool, though, that how much value comes just from these conversations alone.
I try not to sit with it. Like when I get something, I don't sit. My process doesn't end when I get it. My process ends when I can reinterpret it so I can pay it forward and help other people get it. And I put a lot of expectations on myself. Not expectations. I demand a lot of myself. And working through this part of people pleasing and being able to find my voice in areas in which I find it scary. It's been a lot of work, and these last few weeks have been really helpful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is 12:57. I want to tell you the right name of what tomorrow is, but I dropped that ball on the setup on the list because I moved the paper and I can't find it, and I don't want to do it while I'm on live. So tomorrow I hope to see you guys at noon. It is Labor Day here in the States.